Have you heard about the new Soft Weave bathroom tissue with total hygiene? As hygiene and safety have taken center stage, our bathroom tissue is now manufactured with 3 different technologies to offer the best protection for you and your family. UVC light technology for a safe and effective disinfection process, eliminating 99.9% of microorganisms. Also, production at high temperatures, killing all types of germs and bacteria. And it's pH controlled with delicate fibers to prevent irritation for even sensitive skin. Soft Weave Total Hygiene Bathroom Tissue. Available in supermarkets and shops island-wide. Visit Soft Weave Caribbean Facebook or Instagram pages for more information.
As we get ready to give thanks, the long Thanksgiving weekend. Legends Promotions presents the 18th annual Hubbard's Legends in Concert, Saturday, October 26th, Grenada Trade Center at 7:30 p.m. Featuring the 1980 Calypso Monarch Survivor. Together with Stubbles. 10 times Calypso Monarch Scholar. Alongside Luther, Tobago Kuso, and 7 times Soca and 10 times Road March King, Super Blue. Super Blue. Tickets cost $60 and are available at all Kittens Healthcare Pharmacies, Wall Street, Grenville, and Guelph, Springs Shopping Center, St. David's Pharmacy, Clef Vision Eye Care Center, on the Carinage, and Kittens Pharmacy, St. George's. It's the 18th annual Hubbard's Legends in Concert, Saturday, October 26th, Thanksgiving weekend, Grenada Trade Center, 7:30 p.m. You can't afford to miss this one.
Your August is about to get awesome. At Ariza from now to September 30th, you can get a loan up to the value of $25,000, $35,000, or $50,000. Awesome! You think that's all the awesomeness? Apply and get your loan in no time. Awesome! Now you can graduate, celebrate, rejuvenate, and send your kids through the school gate looking awesome. Join today, or members come in to access your awesome August loan. Terms and conditions apply. Ariza Credit Union, your financial freedom, your future. Trust me, things are about to get awesome.
Good evening once again, and welcome to our live Doctrine Call program. It is a pleasure, as always, to be here with you and, of course, with Dr. Nixon. And we welcome all our viewers on GBN Television 711, our listeners on K105 FM, and, of course, our friends on our Facebook page and YouTube channel who are with us. And, of course, we encourage you to share the program and, of course, let others know. This evening we have a very interesting and very important discussion for you. We will be looking at men's health. Very, very important. I think it's no secret that because of our male ego, we tend to ignore certain signs and signals that our bodies give us. And so, when things start going downhill, then it becomes very, very problematic. And so we want to encourage all our menfolk to start thinking seriously about your health, or our health. We have a very important role to play, and if we don't take care of ourselves and we allow ourselves to get ill and unwell, then we will not be able to assist in continuing the generation. Yeah? So we need to be very, very careful and to pay attention to that. So we're going to talk about men's health. We're going to look at some very common health issues that, affect us as men. And I know Doc is quite excited to share that information with us. She's always encouraging the wives and the girlfriends and the other partners to support their men when it comes to their health. Bring them to the doctor, So we're going to talk all about that tonight, all right? So, one Calypsonian said, when you're having issues with men like that, there's a simple solution. Bring them in town where everybody is and tickle them, and that way things going to work out just well. So, Doc, good evening and welcome back. It's such a pleasure to be back with you to discuss and to share information on this very, very important issue, men's health.
You were here last week, weren't we?
Yeah, we were. We were here last week.
Well, good evening to you and good evening to Grenada, and I hope everybody's keeping safe with all this rain. No rain, no food. That's my mantra. But however, there are a lot of challenges I want us to consider in relation to this rain. First of all, we really have to create habits to harness all this water, not to hold it, to save, to find a way to preserve it so that we don't suffer what we did last year and early this year when we had severe drought and there was no water. But that we have to do, in a very scientific way, because there are a lot of other things that can happen when we collect water. You have to follow the rules of how you collect water, how you prevent the water from being contaminated, how you make it safe for you and for the rest of the environment. Some people have tanks. Some people don't have tanks. Some people have concrete tanks. Some people have plastic tanks. And some people have their barrels. There's some barrels that we can't use for drinking water, and I hope people are aware of that. Some of the barrels that we get, the barrels that we actually get from North America, we get things, gifts from foreign, and necessarily barrels that we should be putting in water for drinking. You can use it for washing your dishes, cleaning your bathroom, washing your clothes, but that's not where you serve water for drinking. Please remember that. And even the plastic containers, other plastic containers into which we put water. There are plastic containers that are actually allowable. It's not something straight. They claim the thinner the plastic is, the worse, as far as the whole plastic, the content of the plastic seeping into the water, leaching into the water. So we have to be very careful that we're not. I can't forget why there's a shadow on my right, on my phone. I'm sorry. Right. Yeah. So there's no leaching into the water of toxic chemicals to create other problems, other health problems down the road. And also that when we save our water, we have to prevent those crazy pesky mosquitoes. A couple of weeks ago, we spoke of the mosquitoes, that influx of mosquitoes that look like they were hiding somewhere and they take the barrel plane and come down here. This is not only about Grenada. It's something that has been common to the entire Caribbean where this system came in. Wherever the winds blew, people saw a lot of mosquitoes. What we have seen in Grenada is a rise in dengue fever, and there have been dengue deaths, unfortunately, very sadly. Okay, so please make sure that you prevent yourself. How do we do that? The first thing is to Make sure you don't have, tins and bottles and whatever, debris, coconut shell, whatever it is around your house where water can stay. It's raining almost every day, so you're actually going to have water constantly settling. So the claim is just all you need is one drop of water for mosquito lay her eggs and to make some little mosquitoes that will come looking, because I can tell you, the smaller they are, the hungrier they seem to be, because they really want to get big quick before the 3 days is gone for them to have their own little mosquitoes. So please make sure that we can clean up around our homes, cut the bush. And the bush is frustratingly growing quickly, and people are complaining. There's just so much wild bush, So even if you have a nice little yard, or have a little garden in the back, the weeds grow quickly, and there's just a lot of bush and a lot of facilities for mosquitoes to grow. So please be very careful. Please be very careful with the mosquitoes. What do you do? First of all, you get rid of those things where they can lay eggs and hatch young mosquitoes. 2, you have to cover yourself. Wear long sleeve clothing, wear light colored clothing, especially our children. Wear light colored long clothing. Yes, it's nice, it's a little hot, but you can wear cotton long clothing that will take them away. Keep our windows closed, especially in the afternoon, because those silver and black mosquitoes are the ones that are actually going to carry the dengue and the chikungunya and the what's the other one? Zika. Right. They're going to carry those diseases. And remember, those diseases actually exist in our population. They're just not very widespread. But now the part of the diseases that we have, it's called being endemic. They're around, and unless the conditions exist for the mosquitoes to proliferate and those mosquitoes that might be there in the larval stage, they're like a little, what you see in the drum, they can coil up and stay in dry for a long time, A little rainfall and everybody jump out of their shell and get ready to end the human race. So be very careful that when you have water stored in places like in your house, and we have some live plants that need water, and sometimes we just water our house plants and they have a saucer. We have to empty that and scrub it out. Also the jars or nice crystal jars and stuff where we put our flowers, or fresh cut flowers, and so we have to scrub it, because those larvae stay there and they can stay there for months on end. You get a little water on them, they realize the conditions are fine, and they jump up again and become mosquitoes and continue. If the mosquitoes have bitten somebody with dengue or whatever diseases they're going to transmit, those viruses will stay there until the mosquito comes back alive, becomes an adult again, and pass it on. Okay? Remember that when a mosquito stings you, he puts the proboscis in and spits a little. So whatever is lying there comes out. Whatever he's gotten from somebody else, he puts it into you, and then he sucks up a gallon of blood to make himself nice, to make herself, because the female mosquitoes are the ones that bite, to make themselves nice and healthy to go on and have more babies. So let's be very careful. Also, if you already have dengue and you know that you have dengue, guess what? You say, I have dengue already. It doesn't matter if mosquito bite me. Yes, it does matter if mosquito bites you. If the mosquito comes and stings you, what it does is take the blood out of you that is contaminated with the virus and give it to somebody else. Especially if in a place where a lot of you live together. If you live alone, you're the only one these mosquitoes may be biting. If you don't have very close neighbors, you may be the only one, but there's no guarantee that because you live alone, mosquitoes are not going to come and sting you from having stung the neighbor who has dengue. So if you have dengue, please protect the other people around you. Make sure that you can't be bitten again. Okay? And of course, if you get those dengue symptoms, the headache, we call it breakbone fever, severe pain in your joints, fever, headache, fever behind your eyes, sometimes a rash on your body, please go to the doctor. And we know that the hemorrhagic kind, the kind that makes you bleed, that you can't control bleeding, can also be lethal and has been here in Grenada as we speak. So please be very careful. The other thing is that it's hot. Did you realize how hot it was on Sunday?
Well, we've been getting some high temperatures.
No, on Sunday I felt like I was just walking through a cloud, a boiled cloud, constantly wet. The level of humidity is really intense. And so we lose a lot of trying to cool ourselves down, we lose a lot of our body fluids. and we have to replace it. Sometimes water alone, and most times water alone will not do. So we have to ensure that we can find some electrolytes. For our children, we need to get rehydration fluids, and we have the best rehydration fluids available to us in the form of coconut water. So we have to do that and make sure we can put some coconut water in there. Remember, water alone cannot rehydrate. It is very, very important. If you don't have water that is safe, please boil your water for 15 minutes, cool it down, and then you can put it into a clean container, into your fridge if you want, and drink ad lib, especially for your children. Who are the people we want to make sure have enough water, are properly hydrated? Those who really can't take care of themselves. The rest of us can go and get our drinks. Our children, or little children or babies or children in general. The older people who, for the most part, would have lost their sense of thirst, the need to drink because they lose their sense of thirst. So we have to make sure that they have fluids. And oftentimes they're just inside in a room and they may not complain about the temperature unless it's cold, but they too are losing a lot of fluids on their skin and becoming dehydrated. What you may find is that these people will get very confused. They start speaking foolishness, things that doesn't make sense. The answers are not congruent to the conversation. Say, oh, grandma, getting dotish. Yeah, no. Try and make sure she's properly rehydrated so the brain doesn't start shrinking, and so that the thought process and the whole cognitive abilities are not hampered. Other people, like people who have sickle cell disease or even sickle cell trait, please, 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 please. You have children with sickle cell trait, you're an adult, or sickle cell disease, you're an adult. Please ensure that hydration is a priority, enough fluids. And fluids does not include giving sugar-sweetened beverages. We have to be very careful because there are other things that we have to prevent ourselves from. So please ensure that your children with sickle cell, because once they become a little dehydrated, or sickle cell, people with sickle cell in general, right? Even just the carriers, people who do not have full-blown disease can also have severe symptoms of pain and feeling very tired, and the hemoglobin seems to go down and all the rest. Because the cells, which is what is normal for the sickle cells, the red blood cells in people with sickle cell, they stick together, called the agglutinate, and they form little clots, which can cause strokes, they can cause severe pain, they can cause severe chest syndrome, which is potentially fatal. They can cause problems with circulation, breakdown of your ankle, to have ulcers and all the rest. Hydration, please. I'm begging people with sickle cell disease, sickle cell trait, and their families to ensure that is appropriate hydration. Yes, the other things about generally staying out in the sun. You really shouldn't be out in the sun for more than 15 minutes. I was talking to, I think it was you and I speaking last week, and say, because of climate change and how the heat is early in the day towards early afternoon, we may have to change our labor laws to facilitate people coming to work earlier, especially people who work outside, like construction workers, etc., so they can work in less hot times, because it's hot in the night, it's hot in the morning, but it's really hot from the mid-morning to early afternoon. So we also need to figure out how we're going to protect the people who are out there in the sun, and sometimes not in the sun, just exposed to all this heat, especially like working on this in construction on the roof, where you have the reflection from the galvanized covering of the houses reflected onto the person and really causing damage. So we must be careful. And of course, I think the workplace really should provide water for people who are working outside on the construction site, or people who are doing landscape and all the rest. We really have to preserve our population. So those are the things I wanted to talk about in general before we talk about men's health.
Right. Very important, because as you mentioned, the heat, keep in mind, folks, that despite we getting showers and we are in the hurricane season, and mind you, we are now in the peak of the hurricane season, end of August into September. That's the time when we have the most activities taking place over the Atlantic Ocean. They're coming across, so we have to be mindful of that. Despite that, though, heat waves have been forecasted throughout the period, so we can have spells of extreme heat
weather. Yes.
So we have to be very careful. We have to pay attention and be sure to protect ourselves. Yeah, very, very important. Of course, we'll be talking a lot more of that.
The electricity went in my house on Sunday because apparently, and for a lot of us, I think Dabo up to Granitang and part of St. Andrews and St. Patrick's for many hours from 5:30. Go figure. Between the mosquitoes and the heat. I often think of people who live in houses that don't have sealed roof, like, they just have galvanized zinc as a covering with no way, and they have wooden windows that they close. Maybe those houses are a little cool, yes, but there's no ventilation in the night. Or people who live in areas that are not necessarily safe and have to close up all the windows early, and so there's no circulation of air. Or people who simply can't afford a fan or don't have electricity. My heart goes out for the people, because I tell you, I lay in my house in the dark. I lit a candle to see I could, a scented candle to get rid of those mosquitoes, at least to keep them away from me. But it was miserable. It was miserable not being able to access some form of cooling. And we really have to take into consideration ways of preserving those people who do not have the ability to, regulate the temperature in their homes. It's really, really a sad state of being.
Yes, indeed. So, folks, pay attention to all of these things. So, we want to look at men's health tonight. And, of course, before we start talking about men's health, we weren't born men. We were born little baby boys. And so, Doc, I think it might be best to start there and we come up the road, even if we have to continue next week, because I think it's very important, because where the foundation that is laid can determine what happens later on.
So I want to talk about the bad outcomes we can have first, and then we're going to go to the foundation. So it's always a good time to raise awareness of diseases, especially preventable diseases in men. So this is something we can do every day. We can do all our programs on this and hope that men are listening and taking heed, right? And it's also important that men and boys are encouraged to detect and treat whatever diseases may come up. Some diseases are preventable, some are not, but they should have that practice, that lifestyle that gives them the ability, predisposes them to early diagnosis and treatment for longevity. Men still live less than women. I'm going to share with you some stats from the U.S. because I think it's very important, and these are stats from last year. U.S. has 342 million people, right? Let's say that 350 million. 350,000 men die of cardiovascular disease, that is hypertension, strokes, those things, right? Anything, heart attacks and stuff, right? Every year. That's according to the Centers for Disease Control, which is similar to our CARFA. That takes in all the data and tells us what the data means. More than 700,000 men are diagnosed with cancer each year, and of these, 300 will die. 300,000 of the 700 diagnosed, 300,000 of them will die of cancer. And we know that a lot of cancers are either preventable, or what is not preventable can be treated successfully if diagnosed early. But that means that they have to go to the doctor, that they have to have a habit of getting themselves checked. Yeah, and there's the cancers, the severe cancers like the leukemias and so they're going to just jump on us, and some are like myeloblastic leukemia, which takes you off in 2 weeks, okay? Because it's that aggressive and crazy and unrelenting, right? Prostate cancer alone, 230,000 men in the U.S., right, are diagnosed with cancer, and it is the leading cause of cancer death, right? Or the second leading cause of death of men in the U.S. This is American statistics because we don't have all that statistics, and I think very soon we will be able to use our own numbers, right? Because I see a young epidemiologist working on this, working to get our data straightened so we could understand. And of course, we still submit a lot of our data to PAHO, meaning that our data gets mixed up with all the rest of the Americas, that is the Caribbean and Latin America. And And I guess that can fall for us too, that more than 60% of men, right, in the US are diagnosed with obesity or overweight. Right? That's a trend we see. We see our boys, because they stop on up and play six-a-side and go sport cricket and just run up and down and ride bicycle and bruise their knee. They go home and they play with handheld devices, sit on the sofa, eat pizza, eat mac and cheese, drink sodas. So when you come to that age group, right? In a survey of 500 men between the ages of 18 and 70 about how they use the healthcare services, only 3 out of 5 men get an annual physical. And that's in North America. That doesn't happen. I don't think that is the same number for us. I don't think 3 out of every 5 men in Grenada go to the doctor every year. People go to the doctor when they think they go dead. Unfortunately, that's part of our behavior. Over 40% of men only go to the doctor when they think they have a serious medical condition, okay? And more than half of those 500 men say that their health wasn't something they even talk about. So I agree with you fully that we need to start from the womb, from before conception, because it means that we want healthy men providing boy children, right?
Oh, yes.
We want men who don't smoke, who don't drink, who don't have severe sexually transmitted or don't have sexually transmitted diseases, who are mentally well, right? Becoming the progenitors, the people who are gonna make these boys. We want men who are employed fully. You don't have to be wealthy, but you have some means of occupation, who live in healthy conditions, right? Who live in a stable environment, whose nutrition is optimal. And I think there's nothing wrong in us talking about how we are going to make sure there's a certain state of utopia. We can always do better, but we have to strive to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Okay? So we talked about our girl. Let's talk about Tommy. Now, give me a Grenadian boy name. That's common. Jeez, I don't. Godfrey.
That's not a common name. That's not a common name at all.
Okay. So, Anthony. Anthony is a relatively common name.
Yeah.
So, let's say mom is okay, because she also has to be well. She also has to have appropriate nutrition. She also have to have no illnesses associated with her being. She also has to understand that the period of maternity is a very important period in providing a healthy person, because she's going to make this person. And so she needs to diagnose herself as being pregnant early, and she needs to go get proper antenatal care. Ideally, when a woman misses her period, she really should go to the doctor from then, because then you're able to identify challenges. Because you don't want babies that are born underweight or born with, malnutrition, because that can happen, okay? Or born from women who have diabetes that's not controlled, or born from women who have hypertension that is not controlled, and these babies go through a lot of stress. And sometimes women have preeclampsia and eclampsia, which are diseases related to hypertension in pregnancy, conditions related to hypertension in pregnancy, or conditions of hypertension in pregnancy. And so mommy might die, baby doesn't get breastfeed. So all things being equal, Miss Mary and Mr. John decide they're going to have a baby, and that's going to be Anthony. And they're quite well, okay? They don't smoke, they don't drink, they live in good conditions. And Mary gets pregnant, and she does her antenatal care. And of course, Anthony is born in a hospital setting where mommy doesn't turn up when she realizes, Lord, my belly hurting me. It looks like it's time to make this baby. You've been making a baby for the last 40 weeks. And that is when you need to have antenatal care and have proper nutrition, okay? And no, there shouldn't be any stress, and exercise, and have whatever vaccines you need, and make sure that you check for things like HIV and all the rest of it. Make sure you're tested for sickle cell, which is 1 in 10 persons in Grenada carry the sickle cell gene. 1 out of every 10 persons. So probably you or me carry the gene. I don't, because women get tested in pregnancy, right? But what I'm saying, 1 in every 10 person will carry the sickle cell gene. And so we need to know, okay, what is the situation for this baby, right? What are those outcomes that we may have some control over, or that we should know in order to provide early, proper care for this child. So he's born, and he's born in his time. He's not premature. He doesn't have any malformations when he's born. He's fine. Okay? What do we do when Johnny is born? We test him for sickle cell, of course. We give him his first vaccines, which is hepatitis B, which one of the things it does is prevent the development of cancer of the liver. Okay? And we make sure that this child is breastfed. Mm-hmm. We still want, unless mother has some severe reason why she can't breastfeed, we want to make sure that this child is breastfed for, good brain development. That he goes home to a clean, healthy home, that mommy can breastfeed him. She has the ability to breastfeed him exclusively for the first 6 months of his life. Yes, and he's going to bawl, the more you breastfeed him. That mommy is also taught how to breastfeed a baby, because a lot of mother says, I don't have no milk, I can't satisfy this child. Nature was a little smarter than that. And yes, there are the situations where you have people who can't produce or don't produce enough, and you can supplement. But ideally, you want to breastfeed that child, that boy baby. Because do you know that more boy babies are conceived? Did you know that? Yes. I'm telling you, more boys babies are conceived.
So let me just to sort of segue a little bit here. I hear you, but there is a saying, and I have no way of proving that. This is just what I've heard, that there are a lot more women in the world than men. If that is the case, are men dying faster or?
And at earlier age. So it is said that more boy babies are conceived, right? But more boy babies are miscarried. So when a mother loses a baby, it's kind of likelier that it's the boy. And for some reason, the boys are not resilient as the girl babies to early childhood diseases. So it's very important, right? So when you guys are born, all you have more colics than the girls, or you don't sleep, or you just, they say boy babies are terrible. They don't sleep at night time. They always hungry. Boys are a little fickler. But then from your 6, you want to jump in the river when the river going down. You ride bicycle without on the road. I've been fighting with some little boys in my community who come off my little road onto the main road on a little tricycle. On the side of the bus, they don't come up speeding. And there's another bus parked. So the bus drivers really can't see them. Boys don't use that sense of judgment earlier, middle life, or even later. They take a lot more chances. Okay? So boys are more likely to die by suicide. Boys are more likely to have tragic death in adolescence. Boys go to war.
But can I challenge you here, Doc? And folks, bear with me. Folks, bear with us. I want to challenge Doc here on a little something, and I hear all what you say, and I tend to agree with you. But let us look at the cause. Is it because boys are not given the kind of attention that girls get? No, here's an example. So for you have a little boy in a home. Little boy growing up, he's going to run, and he's going to fall and bruise his knee, and mommy going to say, well, that's all right. He has to grow up. He has to be a man. He has to...
Yeah, go and wash that in the pipe.
No, yeah. If it's the girl, unlike the boy, she go, my mommy baby fall, and she bruise your knee,
that happened to boys.
I don't think. I think girls are a lot more protective, or they're more protected by their parents than boys, and so maybe that lack of protection of boys at such a very early age is probably leading to the kind of risk that we take.
Nature a little more rambunctious, and they're more chance taking. They will take chances a little more than girls. That's just their nature.
I think it's because they're allowed to
Not only that might contribute, but not very widely. Boys take chance.
Well, I'm not sure. I think they take chance because we are sort of not so protected as girls are. So we from a very early age we learn to fend for ourselves by taking these risks. But anyway,
no, I don't think you learn to fend for yourself as you're gone and then your prostate check. I don't think so. I don't agree with you. I'm guessing that boys take less chance. And I don't know all the psychological explanation behind it. Mm-hmm. Boys take more chance. They're not as bothered as much as going and check. They will tell you, boy, that not happened to me. See, Simeon dead from that man. That means not Simeon as a big, strong man, So, no, that's just nature. That's a testosterone pushing you guys to jump up on climb breadfruit tree when rain fall. You don't climb breadfruit tree when rain fall.
Anyway.
Godfrey, do not go up on the breadfruit tree. The branch should fall on. Yes, mommy. And as you pull that kitchen window, you're up on the window. You're up on the breadfruit tree because all you want to go and roast that breadfruit or make oil down. So that's part of it. Boss a little bit there.
That's just us trying to provide for female folks.
I'm not even going to answer that because that is not necessarily one of the most commonly occurring events in these days. But the truth is that our boys die a little earlier. So you'd find that boys, have more challenges than girls. And that's why the male population end up being a little less.
Well, let me just jump in here quickly before you go ahead. Earlier, you made reference to some data from the U.S. and I was just looking at some as well. And Cleveland Clinic, they've also did a recent survey in the U.S. which says most men in the U.S. believe they are living a healthy lifestyle. However, and this was important, 44% don't get a yearly physical. 44% don't prioritize mental health. 49% don't keep a healthy diet. All right?
And those numbers are probably reflected in our statistics as well. If we were to gather all that data, we'll see this, and it's probably worse because all men drink a lot, all women drink, but all men do drink a lot of alcohol.
And that information is facts. It's been tested, researched, surveyed, and that's the findings.
And verified, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So
so we know our men inherently are at risk. So therefore, I think we have to create environments or conditions to ensure that our men are cared for. And I guess in early childhood, mommy carries you to the clinic. She makes sure you get all your vaccines and stuff. But, you go to the dentist, you do all the stuff that you need to do. And it also is tiered based on your social and economic status, right? Mm-hmm. However, as the child gets older and can make more and more decisions for himself, kind of slips away and becomes involved in even more risky behavior. We talk about going and swim and jumping off, swinging and jumping in river that bed almost dry and all that kind of stuff and getting injuries and starting to smoke, not only cigarette, but also using cannabis, being exposed to environments. Because the other thing is that we tend to let our boys go a little more than we let our girls go. They can go outside, go on, while the girl stays home. The girl will stay home and be domesticated, learn to wash, cook, blah, blah, blah.
That's the point I was making. And men or boys...
we tell them to go. We tell them, boy, go outside. Come out inside here.
But not only that, right? If you, for example, here is something. A girl and a boy at home, and I've seen that create issues as the children start growing up. So, for example, with girls, whereas the mother and father may allow a certain amount of freedom for boys as they continue to grow, that don't happen with girls until late. They are very protected.
Yeah, because girls get pregnant. And that's a very visible thing. Mm-hmm. And it creates a lot of family discordance and embarrassment and shame and delay in not development, but in progress in a girl's life. So sometimes that's what we do passively to ensure that our girls are not exposed to that.
But, well, anyway, we can go on, but we have to.
Platform.
Yes,
we
definitely.
Can talk about that. We're not
definitely.
Talk about it, we fight.
Definitely.
So, so what do we want? We want that when Anthony is born, that he gets nutritious foods, that he's not exposed to high carbohydrate, high sugar and starch diet, that he has a balanced diet. We talked about breastfeeding early. We talk about getting fresh, uncontaminated food. We like foreign food, but half of the things we get from foreign have a lot of pesticides and other stuff on it. So we should look at giving our children, our boy children, the nutrition that is important. They do need more than the girls because they have more muscle mass, and so they need more because they will burn all their food faster, right? We need to ensure that they live in environments that are healthy air-wise. You can't have your uncle and your cousin and your brother smoking weed in the house and even outside where the kids playing, and it looks as normal because he's outside, or even smoking tobacco because the kids, he will inhale. You have to make sure that the house is clean, that if he's prone to asthma, that he doesn't have asthmatic attacks, and that if he has asthmatic attacks, as shallow as it may be, as simple as it may be, that our child is taken care of. So his development and everything is okay. So that by the time he's 25, 30, doesn't have chronic obstructive pulmonary lung disease because he's just had this chronic asthma that has never been treated. This boy also needs to be treated as well. Having his shots of repent, simple things like strep throat. Strep throat can make you have heart problems at the end of the day, okay? And sometimes it can make you have kidney problems. So we have to make sure that all of those things are taken care of. Guiding our boys as to how they're going to not smoke, right? Making sure that they're not exposed, the lots of insects. Making sure that they're not exposed to substances and violent behaviors, and they're not taken into environments where they're encouraged to join gangs, because that is certainly going to shorten your life abruptly, right? Most of the guys who die violently, most of the people who die violently are young men, adolescent age and early 20s. We know that, okay? They're the ones we've seen some in the year, but they die relatively young. While men do have a shorter life expectancy, how long will I live after I'm born, than women, right? If we were to change some of the behaviors, we'll see the life expectancy increase, okay? But if they're the ones who are dying young, it means that overall, the expected age for living is shortened, okay? Because especially of the risky behavior that they participate in. We talked about nutrition, which I think is one of the most fundamental things. Are we allowing our children to eat foods that are too salty, that have too much saturated fat, too much sugar, too sweet? What are we allowing our children to eat? And it is important for boys because already we know that when they become adult, they're not going to the doctor, they're not going to go check their cholesterol, they're not going to check their pressure and all the rest. Yet they have all of these diseases that because we don't feel them, we don't attack, we don't go deal with them. Okay? Our men don't go to the doctor because of this. One of the other challenges is that we really don't have a structured adolescent health program here in Grenada. And most of the Caribbean doesn't have an adolescent health program. And often when we think of adolescent health, we only think about adolescent sexual and reproductive health. We don't think about general mental health, general well-being. We don't think about the adolescents who have their disabilities, adolescents with Down syndrome, with learning challenges, with physical developmental challenges, children with cerebral palsy and all the rest. So we don't think of them. We think of the children running up and down, but we have to consider even the adolescents way out on the spectrum to ensure that they too can have a normal life, okay? That they too can be involved. They too can have the maximum social development, because remember, health does include the social, emotional, mental, and physical component of a person's health. So in thinking of our boys and our young boys, you have to think about all of this. If we live in environments where there's no place to play cricket or run up and down or just, play like a football in the grass even, then the boys have nothing to do. they probably sit with other people and learn to smoke cannabis very early, right? If we live in an environment where there is no safety, there is a lot of gun violence, of other forms of violence, it is likely that the boys are the ones most likely to become involved, to be attracted to that kind of life practice. So the boys are going to need support. Who does a boy talk to if he thinks he's having sexual problems? Who does a boy talk to when it comes to gender alignment? Can he speak to somebody, right? An adolescent boy might be worried about what his sexual orientation is. Do we have a way? And that would create mental health issues, right? The issue of bullying and teasing and all the rest that occurs, not just in school, but along the road to home and school among boys who seem differently, creates a lot of problems. And we've seen suicide that has occurred as a result. We've seen injury occur to young boys because they have people think they have different sexual orientation. I've seen it. I've known a set of young men who have been my patients, who have been murdered because they had an alternative sexual lifestyle. Okay? I can tell, not here in Grenada, but I've seen it, right? The whole isolation, we don't need to live in an isolated environment. If you're going to isolate a young man because he seems, or he does, which is his business, have a different sexual orientation from what you think is right, it can become very difficult for this young man to live, to perform, to be the best he can be. So we must there must be a place where he can lodge his concerns and receive support, psychological and otherwise. I'm not talking about what we encourage, and I'm talking about being able to support somebody if they're different. Okay, seeing other illnesses, mental illness in our boys from young is very important because it lends eventually to challenges with truancy, which means that they become less educated. It means that they won't accept health information even with less readily. Likelihood of being involved in not so pretty social behavior, if you understand what I mean, right? It also means that all men who have the responsibility to lead society, it still is like that, right? Become the ones who are marginalized. The men are the ones who are left behind, right? And so women might have children from men, but who don't turn up as fathers. They provide the sperms, right? But they don't provide the support. And children need to have it. And then you have this vicious cycle of you have a son who don't know how to be a man, who don't know how to, to deal with the issues of his gender because he's different from his sister by nature, right? And the cycle continues. So that is mid-childhood, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? Our children are exposed to too much sexuality. Our children are exposed to too much sexuality because they cannot process what that means. Our children have access to pornography. They have access to conversations into which they should not be. Our children are molested, and our boys are molested by women and other men, right, in sexual ways, which is unfair to them because they cannot process all of this, not when they're children. And sometimes even when you're adult, okay, it's difficult to process this. So we must provide a space and a health space, and that has to come within our adolescent health practice and structure and policy. Well, there's a new policy, but it must come in a very practical way where a child can seek care, or a child can be allowed to seek care by his parents, alone if he wants to do so, because it's so sensitive, it's so difficult that he probably choose a healthcare provider but doesn't want his parents to participate. So we must provide that safe space, right, for those challenges. We must provide a safe space for people to talk about being bullied and being led into crimes. There must be a place where these young men can talk and feel safe to express what they need and to find protection, right? So they don't grow up being useless to society because they're constantly so afraid of everything that's going on, right? And again, as we get older and our nutritional needs continue, once we start giving our children, our boys, money to buy food, they will buy crap. I've seen children in primary school run outside and buy the sweetie and the stuff. Excuse me. With the money that mommy give them to buy lunch. How do we solve this? Well, I think we should have a school nutrition. We do have a school nutrition policy, but I think we should have a nutrition program where kids can get decent lunch in school. Parents shouldn't have to worry about what the children eat in a day, but we should be able to provide for our young people nutritious meals. You know, there are the outliers, children who have allergies and all the rest, but that should be known, and special arrangements should be made for kids to have other things if they can't tolerate that which is cooked in a school.
I think that would have to come through policy. Serious
nutrition policy that's being implemented in thing. Are we going to implement the school nutrition policy everywhere? Are we a school nutrition policy? And we've spoken about nutrition, and you heard about the PAHO nutrition guidelines and stuff, right? What a child should have to eat. We need to do that, and these are things that are scientifically defined. That a child must have X amount of greens, X amount of proteins, X vitamins. You understand? Carbs according to gender. We know boys need more food. Anyway, like I said, they're bigger, they have more muscle, which is going to burn out the food quicker. But there must be a way where children can have the proper amount of food. Young people can have the correct amount and the proper quality of food every day. So, and one of the things we tend to forget, kids who depend on getting lunch at school have to eat in the summer, have to eat in Easter, have to eat on the weekends. Because the reason why we gave them meals at school is because there were no meals at home. So our nutrition policy must include ways of feeding these boys and these girls, but our boys we're talking about tonight, even when there's no food, there's no school, we must have a safety net provided so that the child's nutrition can be appropriate as he grows. We have a program in school called Health and Family Life, where children get to understand the whole issue of health as an individual from their small. Whatever is appropriate for their age, what is important is being taught. Our children should have access to sexual health information and other forms of chronic diseases, because if you're eating bad from your 12 and 13 or 6 and 7, you will put yourself at risk. So kids need to know all of this. All this information must be made available to them. They should be able to make decisions, informed decisions, as per their choice, based on what they're taught at schools. And of course, parents should be able to lead their children into making good decisions by being exemplary. I know, and I grieved over what happens in Carriacou, because we've had this big catastrophe, right? So people don't have food, we don't have bananas, we don't have mangoes, we don't have stuff that children normally eat in the summer. So they will have to go for, processed foods. I hope we are over that only too soon, because our children's nutrition is going to be very, very adversely affected if we continue this for a long time. And remember that a lot of those foods that come packaged are designed to make you like them, to become addicted, to always want them. So we're going to have to be very aware as that. As we get into the older population, it becomes a little more difficult for parents to let's talk about a boy who's in 5th form, ready to go ahead, ready to go beyond that. And beyond nutrition, there's the whole social guidance, the whole awareness of oneself. Where do I align myself? Who supports me? Who mentors me? Who gets me to do the things? Because if the adult population like you were doing your prostate exams and going to the doctor every week, those young boys will know, my dad goes to the doctor once a year. When do I go, right? Mm-hmm. If we had a structure where boys will have to go and get checked, they will go. But our adolescent kids go to the doctor when they're sick. And that's unfortunate. As you get older, we start to see, what we've been seeing is the creeping up of chronic diseases, hypertension, sugar not controlled. We see our boys being heavier, not necessarily by muscle, but because they're fat, because they eat all the garbage that's available. That's what they eat. Fast foods, convenience food, I like to call them, because it's easy to get, it's easy to procure, and so they do that. And so we see the peeping out of chronic disease, a lot of the precursors, the thing that happened before the disease appear, the obesity, okay? The obesity is probably the greatest problem that we have among our young people, right? And we see malnutrition because you see those guys who smoke, and even the people who drink, they don't eat nutritionally sound foods. They'll have a soda and a cake or a tart or something, and it gives us the energy we need, but it doesn't give us. It's empty calories. It doesn't give us all the micronutrients, the vitamins and the iron and stuff that we need, and it doesn't give us the protein and the proper carbohydrates and the good fats that we need to consume. Okay, and then we eat all that salt when we cook oil down and all the rest, without being able to discern, because we simply do not know.
Right. And so we're just moving on a bit because there's a list generally of course there are some conditions that will affect men and not women, of course we understand that. But we mentioned quite a few of them earlier: cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, skin cancer, prostate, of course, testicular, colon, and alcohol-related issues as well.
And mental health issues, we can't forget that.
Yeah,
very
definitely. In fact, as you mentioned the mental health issue, the Cleveland Clinic also did a survey where 83% of the men are stressed and nothing is done about it. They don't see help.
Look at the Japanese men, how they become so depressed and they stay in their rooms and die, right? And most of the men, it happens to the women as well, but most of the men, where there's so much demand for them to produce, right, that they get wasted and they die, right? That's a big public health problem. In the same, all men may not die, but all men will turn to alcohol and turn to cannabis, and some people to other substances that are a lot more costly but a lot more deleterious to their living. One of the things you have to remember that when that people we could talk about marijuana for a month, but when a boy starts smoking weed early, the earlier starts smoking weed, the greater the likelihood of you having brain damage.
Yes.
And I don't care who called it the weed of wisdom. Do you know that?
Well, look, I mean, there's research that has proven that over the years.
For you to get the health benefits of cannabis, you have to drink it or eat it. It's not smoking it. Smoking is bad. We talk about smoking a million times. Smoking destroys your lungs, and you get a whole lot more toxins in there. Okay? I wish that the people or the powers that be that are providing, that are growing towards decriminalization of marijuana, explain to our young people and to our population in general that is not legalization of ganja. That's a totally different thing. In other words, this is not open up a hedonistic state where you can smoke a big old spliff in the market square, you can smoke on the bus, you can smoke in the classroom, you can do whatever you want. That's not what it is. It is the use of cannabis for medicinal purposes, right? And they also allow people to have a certain amount of personal cannabis. So there's no trading. There's none of that. Trading must be done in an open, very overt environment, and basically for health purposes only. Okay? So I want people to know that, because we don't want our children to just go there and, whoa, ganja free up the weed, and everybody smoking and destroy themselves. The other thing is that when you start smoking early, you do have brain damage, especially around when you get into adolescent years, 13, 14, where your brain is now being formed to make executive decisions, to control impulse and all the rest of it. If you are infusing cannabis into your brain at that stage, you will in fact have mental health challenges. You will not be able to be as correct in decision making as you can, because those things are not properly formulated. Your brain does not develop properly. The other thing is that, you can be prone to having mental illness. You don't necessarily have to have mental illness unless you find the situation that triggers it off. I tell people every day, you listen to the weather, and the weatherman said there's a 60% chance that we'll get rain today.
Mm-hmm.
What chance is it that we don't get rain?
Mm-hmm.
There's a 40% chance that we don't get rain. So if the conditions change, if the clouds move away, temperature drops, the humidity drops, we're not going to get any rain, right? But if the conditions stay as they are and develop in favor of rain, it is quite likely, more likely than not. In the same way, I might have mental illness, right? And my son might be prone to having mental illness. But if my son is not exposed to stress, if he's not using substances, if he doesn't have other things that might make it possible for him to have, for his mental illness to show up, he will not. We see a lot of young guys who have this psychotic expression very early in their lives, simply because they have been smoking cannabis. And that's a reality. And I wish, and the people who promote the sale of cannabis, with all due respect, that is the truth, and that has been proven, right? And we have a responsibility to ensure that we can protect our children from mental illness. Because the bottom line is that our society is not prepared to deal with the stigma that mental illness bring. Okay? If a boy has a first mental illness break, let's say he has some psychosis, are we going to ensure that a child can still go to TAMCC, or he can go to a skills training unit and be his best that he can be? That is what it is about. Not here. In Grenada, once you've had a mental illness, everybody think, well, you're done. No, you ain't done. It happens once. It's a matter of staying well, getting back to the best person that you can be, right? So all of these things we need to teach our population, that having one mental illness break is not it. And so what we do, we leave our boys in particular to roam the street and become vagrants, and they're out there, out on the periphery, continuing to do the things, poor nutritional state, no respect from the community, because they're just all out there by themselves without the social, medical, mental, emotional, financial, nutritional support that they require.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Indeed. So, Doc, I want us to, and clearly from what I'm saying, we may have to continue along this line next week, because I really want us to go into some specifics as it relates to some of the actual conditions that affect our men and what we need to do. In fact, I'll tell you, one of the reasons why I suggested this, it was a friend of mine last week who mentioned to me, in fact, he showed me some statistics he saw on social media, which showed that the death rate of men in Grenada is very high, probably the highest in the Caribbean when it comes to prostate. So I am not sure about the actual data. I'm going
to say this here, and I'm going to say this everywhere else. I've seen those statistics more than once. I've seen them before. But when I see data presented, I am very cautious about the source.
Yes, well, definitely.
The person has mentioned, whoever the agency is, mentioned that PAHO, NIH, and reputable agencies, CAFA, etc., those are data that they have seen and things. I don't know. I've never seen them. I've never seen that. I asked about it. I asked an epidemiologist about it. I didn't get to talk to CAFA about this. But I will take it with a grain of salt until it's proven otherwise.
No, I totally agree. But that being said...
I want the people in Grenada to hear, because a lot of people got into a state of panic. But panic is not going to solve our problem. Behavior change is what's going to solve our problem.
Well, that's the point. That is exactly the point.
Why is it that we have a high incidence of death by prostate cancer? Prostate cancer is probably the slowest growing cancer, certainly in men. And if you look at if you did a postmortem of most men over 70, 80 who died, you'd see that they have prostate cancer. Okay? But we know what we need to do. We know that we need to screen. We know that we need to be aware. We know that if my father had prostate cancer, I have an increased risk. So, well, we should know all of this, okay? We should know all of this, but a lot of people don't know. And sometimes people post date information to create sensation and to create confusion, and we have to be very careful.
No, I totally
will not
agree.
say that data is yes or yay or nay, but what it does remind me is that we need to provide facilities for screening, for education. The Cancer Society has a platform on which we can go on and get data on any form of cancer. An IT platform, okay? We need to educate our men every so often in the workplace, in the rum shop, on the field, on the cricket field, on the football field, wherever men are. We have to go out and meet them just to remind them and to guide them and to provide facilities. Because we talked about that in the beginning. Men have not yet been converted to seek out care. Okay? Men are not at that stage. And this is not Grenada alone. This is everywhere. Men are not ready to just get up and go to the doctors. Yes, I have friends who say, yeah, I did my prostate check. I did my PSA. I got my prostate examined and all this. But that's a smaller percentage of our population. And so therefore we actually need, right, to create a place, a space where men have the awareness, men have the access, and they have the drive, and they have the understanding that these are things that I can take into consideration, I can take control of, right? And I can ensure that I have a longer life. And it's not just prostate cancer, it's drinking, and it's smoking, and it's driving recklessly, and it's sleeping around, having unprotected sex and spreading everything around. And it's not taking care of your children because you're not even sure that's your child. You don't even remember having sex with a person because you were so drunk. And it's a lot of other ills, right, that can be related to men and their health. Is men, you spoke about men's mental health. Men do not recognize when they have mental health issues. How many men you think will come and say, boy, Godfrey, I think I'm depressed? How much are your friends? As mature and educated as they may be. Okay? So we have to create a space where men can understand I can have challenges, but my challenges can be fixed. So here's a role for the church. Here's a role for the working environment. Here's a role for community centers. Here's a role for whatever, football clubs, cricket clubs, wherever men find themselves. This whole thing of keeping all men whole and ready and exemplary must be worked on. It's not going to drop out of the sky.
But Doc, one of the things I'm kind of concerned about, and aside from this data, and the truth is I'm not so particularly concerned about that, but clearly prostate cancer is the concern here, and I have noticed actually lately, because it is known that prostate is supposed to be a very slow developing thing, all right? But I think it is becoming noticeable that young men are actually coming down with that problem, and based on the science.
What is young?
And late 50s, 60s.
But that's not young so much.
But generally,
everybody's after screen at 40.
Right. So generally, and you mentioned it, when you get to 70 and so you would start seeing that. But there was a good friend of mine, early 60s, who died because of that. He died. Based on the science, at 60. You shouldn't die from prostate, should you?
You shouldn't die from prostate cancer.
Well, that's the point I'm making. So it is of concern, and this is why I raised it. It is of concern. And so I'm wondering here, if we are, and men here are not overly careless, in that we're not checking early enough to ensure that.
But why would we check unless we are aware? Why would we check unless we're motivated to? Why would we check unless we encourage each other to do this? Because I know men who encourage their friends and they go and they do it. Why would we check at all unless our system, our public health system, teaches us the importance of checking, right? And I can tell you, I've done multiple dozens and hundreds of rectal examinations, and I go through it with my patients and I tell them what it is about, and then my friends say, "That's it." Oh, because I think it's some big scientific autoclaps that's going to happen, right? The apocalyptic experience they're going to have. It's a short 10-second, 15-second examination. But men they don't know because they're so scared. And I understand. I'm not saying they're right, but I'm saying the health sector has to provide, right? The education, the knowledge, the awareness, create the awareness so that men can see. But also the environments in which men find themselves must also be conducive and must be supportive of encouraging men to get screened.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. Now, as I told you, I was looking at some of these, the stats from Cleveland Clinic, and Dr. Sullivan says, on average, 1 in 8 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer. And goes on to say it's a slow-growing disease that typically appears late in life, and that men can begin their checks or begin screening by age 55. I mean, maybe a little earlier. No, in
the Caribbean, we encourage 40.
Right, and fair enough, But my concern is somehow I am getting the feeling that for whatever reason, it seemed to be moving a little faster than it should in some people. Could there be any particular reason, or there's something that men are doing that is probably triggering it?
It may be that people are diagnosed later at the stage, because why we ask people to come at 40? Should you have changes? So, should you have changes? You can be. It shouldn't be anything quick,
right?
Because 60 is like, oh, you realize this, right? But if a man is coming from 40 to get screened, right? By the time he's screened the third time, which is 3 years from now, your doctor can tell you whether your prostate has grown, or use an ultrasound, or your PSA has gone up, right? Because if I do your PSA and I see it's above normal, a normal PSA is 0 to 4, right? But if I see you on your 2.6, right, and you're 40 years old, right, I will do over your PSA in 6 months. And if I see your PSA is 3.2, you're going you're going beyond that. You're going to the specialist, because it means that it has advanced quickly. Right. But in order to get to 4 from 0, things have to be going on. Right?
So this is it, and it's what I'm asking. Are there things that can cause that to speed up the growth? So, for example, maybe lifestyle patterns. Are there lifestyle patterns that can help speed up the growth of prostate cancer?
Smoking that predispose men everybody to cancer in general. The hormonal changes that occur in men as they age, right? And family predisposition is very, very important. I remember when we started to look at, when I was living in Jamaica, and we started to talk a lot about prostate cancer. This is in the 90s, right? There was a guy who lived in Canada. His mother took him away from his father and went to Canada. He was 6, never knew who his father was. I don't know what was the problem between the mother and the father, right? And she takes his 6-year-old and he goes to Canada. And then in his early 40s, he's diagnosed with prostate cancer. And he knows that there's a familial predisposition. Somebody in the family is likely to have prostate cancer, right? And he comes to Jamaica looking for him father family. Unfortunately for him, his father had died not so long ago and had from prostate cancer.
Okay.
Just so that he could know who he was and he needs to tell his own child something, okay? So we know that there's a family. You need to know, your boys need to know, your cousins, the boy cousins need to know that, daddy had prostate cancer. So check it out, right? I encourage my brothers to check their prostates, because we've had men who have had prostate, and they've just come up, they just appeared in the last couple of years. And I tell them, you need to check this. It's more than just one thing. It's a whole plethora of things.
Okay.
And it starts with education and awareness and support and facilitation, right? But it also includes having, what if I say, your PSA is 4.3. It was 2.2 last year, right? You need to go to see the urologist. Is there a urologist? Are there enough services? Right? Can you get your biopsy done within a decent window, let's say 6 months, right? Because this is a slow-growing tumor. What else can we do? What are your options for treatment, right? Surgical, laser surgery, XYs. Do you have money to go away to make it less invasive? What are you going to do? I know now because one of the problems that men have after they've had prostate surgery, for example, or men have had, is having impotence, because that nerve gets, but the science is kind of better. And most of the people who I know, and relatively young men, 50s, who have had prostate cancer, right, and went in early, right, they don't have that challenge. And yes, there are side effects of surgery, but the bottom line is that you can remove all of that prostate tissue, right? And those guys who have been diagnosed with prostate cancer and have been on treatment, have had surgical therapy and all the rest, check their prostate-specific antigen, that test, every 6 months, as is required, or some every 3 months, as they've been advised. Because now they have this awareness. Now they know they have it in control. But until we can get to a point where our men can accept that this is a challenge, and I shouldn't be here. Maybe I should ask Dr. Aiken to come back and talk about this. It's funny, I was in New York the other day, and one man talked about Dr. Aiken talking about prostate issues. Go figure, because he'd been listening. Unless we can get to the point where men can accept that is a challenge to their health, and that if that's one thing they have to overcome, right? And they have to start early in order to have better outcomes, better results, right? You may not have prostate cancer. Not everybody's 1 in 8, right?
Yeah,
you might just be. But you might just be the one.
That's it.
But you could also be the 7th person. You're good, right? So unless you can put all those things together, and like I said, what is also important is, do we have facilities for treating if we diagnose early? And all of those things have to come in, and recuperation, and health insurance, and all the kind of stuff, right? All those kind of stuff. If we can have all of that, all in one space, right? We can promote, and it's not that we shouldn't promote what we have, but we have to ensure that we can develop a healthy cancer plan for our patients, so they know that there is a hope. There is hope that I can do X, Y, Z, and I can be fine.
Right.
I'm not just going to do my prostate test or going to do my biopsy and then what? And some people need a longer time for recuperation than others. What happens with my work and being able to take care of my family? People want to know, they might be a little younger. What happened? You just married, maybe a second marriage, and you don't have any children. What, how does that work out? Right? All of those things. It's big. It's not just, this prostate and no, it's a whole lot of stuff, and it must be structured, and it must be. And it must be positive and encouraging and very supportive, and patient inclusive. The patient must be at the middle of all of the individual who is seeking help or who is being asked to seek care, because you might find it, right? I discuss with all my male patients, right? The person who is at the center of this must understand that they have to run this. They have to do the test, right? They have to go, you send them to do whatever they need to do. That, yes, it's inconvenient, but at the end of the day, it should work out for better for them. And what we want to do is to be able, we probably can't stop you from having prostate cancer. We probably can't, okay? As far as we know, right? But what we can do is to make sure that you don't die. Because when I looked at those statistics, those horrible statistics I said were very scary, because we were almost twice as high as the next person, right? We were like 80-something per 100,000 people, right? And there's a mortality. So it means that out of 100,000 men in Grenada, we don't have that. So let's say 50,000 men, like 49 men would have died, or 80-something men would have died out of the 100,000, right? You understand what I'm saying, right? How can we change that? So is it that people who died? Because there are people who, I had a patient who had stage 4 prostate cancer and went to the hospital with chest pain and died of a heart attack. Is his statistic included? He did not die of prostate cancer. Do you understand? So there are a lot of things in interpreting data that you have to make sure that the data says exactly what it's saying. Is it this, but we found all the patients and saw that all these people had died for one reason or the other, which may or may not be prostate? Or is it just people who died from complications of prostate cancer?
Yes, indeed. Well, I mean, like I said, you know, my main concern here is ensuring that, you know, we do the screening, and I'm speaking here, men, we do the screening, we catch it early because it is preventable, and we can, you know, go on and live, you know, excellent lives and you know, do what we have to do. But Doc, we have to wrap here, but I would like us to continue next week and to go a little deeper into the whole prostate issue, you know, explain again what it is, the symptoms, how you can identify, and, you know, when you need to see a doctor and all of these things, because I think it's very, very important that we do. It's something that we just cannot, you know, continuing to speak of. So I would like us to continue along that line next week and go a little deeper into the whole prostate. So that's all the time we have, folks, for this evening's program. Doc, 30 seconds with your your parting comments.
Lord, you make it look like I'm migrating. Yeah. I think we have to remember and embrace the fact and support the fact that our men are very important. Our men are still the backbone of our society, regardless of how dysfunctional a lot of them are, right? Regardless of how we think about them, they're the ones who take care of the labor part of the force. They still lead most. Look at our cabinet. Our cabinet is mostly men. You go to the bank, wherever you are, men still lead our societies. And we need to have our men healthy in all aspects. We need to have our men taken care. We need to have our men taken care of gently. Because sometimes, like you say, you know, boy, go and wash it. Go and wash all the gravel in the pipe and come out to my face. Okay? Let me see what this is. Let's see if there's any. Let me see if I can help you clean it. Go inside and find ointment, and there's a Band-Aid. That's a different approach. Okay? Making him feel that he deserves support and that he will get the support. Right? And then they ask, how is it feeling? It's swell up? He can come and say, Mommy, it's bleeding. Right? And so from childhood, we need to let our men know that they're special, they're important, and we need to provide facilities for them to be able to seek out when they understand. We have to teach them, educate them, and control them. So we need to push them or grab them. Wife take them, girlfriend take them, sister, cousin, friend take them to do the things that are required, right? We have to focus a lot on our men not accepting as normal bad habits, the habits of smoking, drinking, being reckless. We have to support our men with mental health challenges, help them to understand that is something that can be helped. And we all, you know, I can tell you, us, the healthcare professionals, are the ones who probably promote stigma related to mental health the most, because I can tell you, I have friends who will not see a mentally ill patient in their office, and their GPs. They don't want to see them. Or their specialists, don't bring them here, right? But we have to create a safe space so that our boys and our men who have mental health and other look frowned upon health challenges and sexual orientation differences, that they too can seek out help. and our adolescent boys have to find a space where they can be, I want to say coddled, but not coddled. They can be appreciated and cared for and made to feel better about themselves and made to encouraged to make good choices as per their own health so they can grow into healthy men. We have to put education into the school system, health education in particular. We have to encourage good nutrition practices for our children. Playing in school, running up and down, being active, all the things. And our communities and our workplaces and everybody have to come together to ensure that men, the males in our community, have a place where they can feel safe enough to seek out health support and to make a difference in their own lives and in each other's lives as well. Because I believe that men are important in supporting men as far as health is concerned.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Doc. It was indeed a pleasure again. And of course, we thank our friends on Facebook, YouTube, our friends in the US, as we have people viewing all the way from Ohio in the US with us this evening. We thank you all so very much for tuning in and wherever else you are. Thank you. And of course, you can join us again next Tuesday for another Doctor and Call. As I said earlier, over the next few weeks, there will be some adjustments to our programming because of the Caribbean Premier League cricket tournament that starts on Thursday. Yeah, so there will be some changes in our programming to facilitate these games. Yes, tomorrow evening you can join me at 8:30 for our Climate Reality, episode 6 of season 3. Tomorrow we'll be looking at the blue economy, oceans, and climate change, how climate change can affect the blue economy and the ocean economy. So be sure to join us for that.
Panamanians.
Yes, be sure to join us for that.
And one more thing,
tomorrow
before we go.
At 8:30.
One more thing, school starts next week. So again, parents have a responsibility of preparing their kids for school. Parents have a responsibility of telling their children there's going to be a lot of cough and cold. Maybe it's a good time to give your children a mask to wear again because they are going to be cough and cold out there already. Tell your children what is expected. And this is a good time also to start feeding our children appropriately from home. So they don't have to get on to the sugar-sweetened beverages. Water can still be your preferred drinks, your preferred drink, and too much starch and pasta and all the foolishness that really just make us fat and sick.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Do have yourself a good night. All the best.